to bring people together. So you have the sense of someone, if they're connected or not, if they're, what is going on with them? Are they okay? What can I do for you? And especially as a strong functional team, if you do not spend time with each other, then you start to assume things that may or may not be true.
Anisa, welcome to the Oxford Talks podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm happy to be here with you.
You have come all the way from America.
Yes.
Such a distance.
Yes, I came from Atlanta yesterday.
That's amazing. And you have been running multinational companies since 1992. I think the audience would love to know how that journey started.
Well, I was 24, so that's a very long journey. And
we got time today.
So it was by default. It wasn't something I planned. I never thought I would own my own company or be where I am today. I was working with a family company, a family business that my mother started. She started an international trading company. And, we had a few good years together. I was very young when I started with her. I did not complete a formal education, so I do not have a college degree. And I had to find something to do because her business went through a collapse. And she told me at 24 that I needed to figure it out. So I figured this out, which is I manufacture and design cosmetic brushes. I had met this gentleman when I was working with my family business. I was 21 when I met him. He was 25. And I connected with him and asked him if I could please sell his brushes. I would pay him when I got paid. And that's where it all started. That's where it all began.
Yes. And the journey is quite exciting because we were working on the talk together as well. And during curation, you mentioned that, which was very fascinating for me. And I really would love to unpack that. Your mom, there was a point in time that you stopped calling your mom and you start calling her by her name, Fatima.
Yes.
How did that journey came
Yes.
along?
It's great that I'm doing this talk with you because it's bringing me back to these things that I maybe don't consider as significant as they were because it just happened. Now that I am where I am and I think about the person who is that person, that me, so many years ago, when my mother literally said to me, we had just come out of a meeting with a bank, and I think I'd called her mom or mommy or mother. And, we're in business suits, and she's like this dynamic entrepreneur now. And I must have said something, and we left the meeting. You will no longer call me mother. You will call me Fatima. And she didn't say just at work. She made it a resolute statement. And when I was thinking
So
about
even at home then?
Pardon?
Even at home then?
Oh yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. No, I
Okay.
still call her to this day Fatima.
That's
She
nice.
sends me now cards and things, and she'll say mother or mom, and it makes me uncomfortable. She's
crazy.
Fatima. We all know her as a Fatima. And to me, when I was thinking about it at first, I think it did kind of hurt my feelings, the child in me, even though I was in my early 20s and this is my mother. I do think I was also honored by it because she looked at me as maybe some type of equal on some level.
Did that initially cause you a bit of a kind of a mental recalibration? Because when you call your parents or I think we call our siblings by their name, but normally when we're very young, we don't call. I think people still call parents dad and mom or whatever. But calling your parent by a name, that's what was the recalibration in your head that, oh, there is mother, that she's my mother, but at the same time she is this incredible businesswoman. How do you recalibrate who's who I'm talking to at what time?
So my mother, Fatima, has a very dynamic story. She had 4 children by the time she was 24. I don't know if that would have been her path if she would have had choice in the matter. I don't know if Fatima was ever really that maternal. I think she was meant to be a businesswoman. She was meant to be very entrepreneurial. She was a real visionary. I don't know if she wanted to be mom. So it was actually very natural for us to now not have to act as if. And I was really more so that protege to her. She was really a mentor to me, a coach to me. I took on that number 2 role, that really a very operational role since I was young with her. I was very young starting to work with her. I was very operational, very early on
Yeah, I know.
and
Yeah.
very task oriented because I did want to please her. Even though she may not have been very maternal, I still really wanted her approval because I so admired her.
I want to talk about your dad.
Yeah.
It's an incredible story, and it has shaped your journey in so many ways, at so many different fronts, at so many different age times as well. Um, Looking back at it, let's start with what's the most kind of visual memory or you have of your dad. What do you think that you remember of your dad now?
So again, uh, my early days, they weren't easy. My parents were very, they had a very intense relationship. My dad was from Afghanistan, my mother was Russian descent, very dynamic, each of them. But the earlier memories with my dad were pretty volatile and not towards me, but towards my mother. So my earliest memories are their, arguments. And, I always had a lot of respect for my father. And my father really loved us. He was very paternal. He wanted to be a father. He loved the family aspects of things. Like he had given up a lot for us coming to the United States and everything he had to sacrifice in a lot of ways and things he had seen in his young adulthood and growing up in Afghanistan. And so he truly was committed to us as family.
When you say he was growing, so what time frame was it? Was it before, I was assuming, the
It was the
Soviet
60s.
60s? Okay.
So, and there was, at that time, there was a monarchy, which was like a dictatorship. But my father was was very educated in Afghanistan, and so there's things that he was trying to deal with to support a more democratic, point of view, but that wasn't really considered positive. So he had the opportunity to come to the United States. And there's a lot of, background about that I haven't been privy to.
Mm.
And so, the more I kind of, I kind of research and things like that, what he had to go through, why was he in America? So I don't know everything. We just know little tidbits of this and that and the other. But my memory of my father when I think of him is, he was a really funny guy. He was a clever man. He used to make fun of me because I have his nose. So like I'm a, I'm as a young girl, young teenager, in front of all my friends would say, "Oh, baby girl, you and I have a nose. We can't drink out of soda bottles." I'm like, "Dad, can you not say that in front of all the boys in front of like?" But he was, he was that kind of guy. He was funny. He was tough. He was really tough. High expectations. I'm the eldest child. They both had very high expectations. The bar was always super high for me. And yeah, but he was also a really good guy. Liked to cook. We always played sports. He was easygoing. He was smart. I didn't know how smart he was really. He was my dad. And so that's what, when I think of my parents, there's Fatima and then there's my dad, who I used to call Pops.
Yeah,
So
yeah. And I guess with your dad, I think if you're part of kind of like government mechanics, and life is bit here and there, and I think I mean, I can't imagine back in 60s or 70s and that time frame, but even today, if you're part of any of those kind of, and even today, I have sort of I have a business with banking and all of those things as well. The scrutiny on, even if you want to open an account, and if you have access to MPs in UK or members of Parliament House, you have to disclose that information. That, oh, several MPs have been on the pod. If I want to open up a bank account, I have to actually tell that, yes, I have met those and all of those. They call them people of I forgot the name. I haven't seen it in a while, but it's like they call it like an influential person. So I can't imagine that back in those times that you wouldn't be able to know like what exactly, if again, it's all kind of a figments of this information and that information. And does that, so you have your mom who is with you, who's teaching you with all the business, and you have your dad who is, did you know what he was working while he was in America, or was that not like a thing either?
yeah, so it was funny because my dad, even, they had Muslim religious backgrounds. He really didn't want us to do that. He didn't really want us to learn other languages. My mother would like us to have learned, at least Islam, any kind of Arabic. She really wanted that for us, and my father really didn't want that. She wanted us to learn Turkish because that, even though she was Russian descent, she was raised in Turkey. My dad really didn't want that. He didn't talk about where he came from. He wanted us to be American. He
Mm.
wanted us to be safe. So he did not let me tell people that my mother was Russian. It wasn't acceptable for me to ever bring that up. And this is again the 60s in Nashville, Tennessee. There was a lot going on at this time, and there was civil unrest in America. There was then the Afghan and Russian war that happened,
Yes.
and my father was, wanting. He had this air of wanting to protect us. So I don't know again everything he was dealing with. He taught at a university. He was a agriculture and development professor. I used to go with him to the university when I was very young before I went to school. He recruited for football teams like the Dallas Cowboys. One of the guys he recruited worked for the Dallas, went to the Dallas Cowboys. I just knew my dad like that. We had a garden in our backyard in the middle of like a very like suburban area, but he pretty much had a farm. We had every kind of fresh vegetable and fruit. He wanted us to be very athletic. He wanted us to be very academic. He always felt I should be very independent, which I thought was interesting because he really didn't support that in my mother, but he really wanted that for me, which I thought was really interesting. And that was how I saw my father until they divorced. And then when they divorced, when I was 15, there was another side of him I saw,
Mm.
a very dark side, a very depressed side, a very, distant side where I didn't get to really be close to him anymore. And he really left us because he was very unhappy that we did not go with him. And we stayed with our mother because it was close to our school district. And also we were afraid to go with him because he was very intense.
Mm.
And so we stayed with our mother, and that was very tough. That broke our family. The divorce really was devastating. As toxic as the marriage was, at least we had a family unit and there was something we could depend on. Like there's spaghetti night on Mondays, there's pizza night on Fridays. You had your what you did for summer, what you expect during the fall, whatever it was, there was some consistency. When they divorced, it really broke the family. And yeah.
How did you? What was the time period? Because I wanna this because we were working on the talk together. I have
Yes.
a lot of kind of information there that there's a lot that happened there that shaped you who you are today.
Yes.
And I think even with the works that we're doing together, we are trying to kind of unpack that, take the nuggets out from there. Hopefully, other people can take a sort of an example or take a sort of inspiration from that. What was that time period between, let's say, 15 to 25? I know that it was quite tough. Your dad went away, and then you had to make do with whatever. Money was coming in, going out, coming in, going out, and you had to skip the kind of a teenage years and jump straight into like, okay, we need to pay rent.
Yes.
And how was that time period? What was the highlight? What do you remember of that time?
So I became very independent very quickly because my mother had started this business 3 years earlier. My father had given her permission, and now I see that she was really pathing her independence. She was being very thoughtful and very mindful how she was going to get out of the marriage. So she started to have some success. She needed to travel. She needed to take long trips, like she'd be gone for a month at a time. The first trip she took, she had asked my father if he'd come back to the house and if he would help. And that what didn't work. He would get very angry, so we didn't see him. Like, there was one time he came and then he was gone. So I had to help take care of my sister and my 2 brothers, but I was 15.
Mm.
So 15-year-olds should not be left to a house alone. So you could only imagine, and I wasn't like
And this is before internet, I'm assuming.
before internet, but
Yes, so
still,
no access to things,
yeah,
and yeah,
but
no
still had
delivery.
access to a
Yeah.
lot of things. So there might have been people that came over. There might have been things that happened, like things because it was a free for all. It was really a free for all. So I had to maintain some kind of semblance of sanity, but I was 15
Mm.
with no real skill set other than, I knew my mother would come back. I knew I needed to support her. And she also was very young. So if I'm 15, she's 35. And she's now sowing her oats as a powerful female traveling the world. And the kids are at home. And my dad's living like an hour away or so. So it was a little bit of madness. I mean, it really was. We were left to our own devices to do whatever we wanted. And I think we all have had to deal with that. And it took me a long time. So when I was 17, I started working for my mother and, really working in an office. I had been helping her since I was 12 in the garage. But at 17, she got her first office. So where I was allowed to go to the office. And I was a 17-year-old. So very, rebellious 17-year-old. I tried to go to college, but it didn't make sense, and she said, "It doesn't make sense you're going to college. You should just work for me."
And you just rolled with it as it
So
is.
at 19, I was working for her full time. And yeah, there was a lot because she wasn't the most kind. She was tough.
I'm imagining a
Yeah.
business scenario would just even bring a more harsher response. Just do this.
Yeah,
I don't want to
that's
hear. Yeah,
yeah, yes, and I was difficult because maybe, I'm very strong, very independent. God knows what I was saying to her. I would tell her what I thought, and because I'd been around, I'd seen it. I knew her weaknesses, I knew her strengths, and I was having fulfill and supplement her weaknesses because she wasn't always the most organized. She was the kind of person that it was when you had checkbooks back then. You had a checkbook, you had
yes.
like 3 tiers of checks, and I was the one balancing the checkbook. So she would literally come into the office, ask for the checkbook, and I'm like, "Why? Why do you want the checkbook?" She would just pull the checks out. I said, "We have to record these." She's like, "I'll tell you when I tell you." I was like, "This is not." So I'm the
Absolute
one.
rebellious.
She was. I mean, she hadn't had freedom. She, again, had had 4 kids by 24, married at 19, had been with her parents. The only reason she married was because she could get away from her parents that she had to take care of. And when they immigrated to the US, and she had a lot of stuff. Like Fatima had a lot of stuff. And yeah,
Yeah, and I think from my interactions with you so far, I think you perhaps maybe I'm wrong, but you come across a very different person to what you describe your mother to be. I think you're very kind, very soft spoken. I don't think so. You're gonna be like, bring the checks, and we'll get paid above
no, no, but
everything.
I am tough. I'm not, I've come a long way. I'm going to be 60 this year. So, if you talk to other people, like I started my business with her teachings. So I was not always kind. I wasn't always calm. I wasn't always fair. I was fair in the way I thought. I wasn't cruel, but I have been very tough. And I have
Yeah,
been, Fatima could be condescending, she could be demeaning. I have been. I mean, I have many regrets how I have had to run my business. But those are the things that I feel like I've been working on. Like, and it's hard, to continue and to forgive myself and hope others will forgive me. But I learned how to survive from Fatima.
and it's so interesting to hear, Manisa, because it's like a popular saying that with children, either you tend to become your parents or you just tend to run away from what your parents say, the mom or dad, whatever personalities they are. In business, it certainly was the case for me personally that when my grandfather was a clothing merchant, my mom was a fashion designer, so the attention to detail, I picked up from her that if you're not paying attention, the client will come and be like, oh, actually I don't like this color, and then the whole thing would have to be redone, and that just is just so ingrained in me today that I'm saving myself future work by just do it properly the first time so I don't have to do it again and again afterwards. That is, I can't take it out of me
Yeah.
because I don't have had any other business, let's say, quote unquote mentors. How did you become, you said you were tough, you didn't realize that you might have been extra tough on people, but if you're not that person today, what was that kind of a middle gap or situations or people that helped you bridge that?
So I think, being humbled, I was, even though if I was successful, I would be going through situations that would really humble me. And in my 40s, my early or late 30s, early 40s, I'd gone through a lot. I mean, a lot. And so I was also going to go through a divorce. And when I went through that divorce, I think that is what gave me the opportunity to regain my humanity. I was in a very unhappy marriage also. So that's something again we take from our parents, right? We have examples, and I think I had this example of how people should treat me or whatever, what I'm going to attract or the trauma I had to go through early in my life. So I was in a marriage I was very unhappy. And in that unhappiness, I brought that to work. And that's what a part of me now too is as being a leader, it's important that whoever works for us or whoever we are, you cannot, your personal and professional to divide it is not possible. You have to bring your whole human. If you have something at home that's bothering you, it's going to come into work. So when I was able to finally get out of this marriage, which took me a long time to get out of, I realized how miserable I was. And I started to accept and really allow myself to understand my unhappiness was bleeding into everything I did. Then I did a really cool training where it was with Dale Carnegie here in the UK. Great people. And they did a video training. I got to see myself. But we started talking about tone and we started talking about condescending. And when I realized how condescending to another human feels, it really, just hit me in such a way. I think awareness comes from understanding how we make people feel and the empathy. If we can really understand what our actions do to another, that's, I think, the only way to create change. And like I was just listening right now to something where this gentleman was saying a harsh tone. I can have a harsh tone, and I have been working on my tone for 10 years. I can have a harsh tone with my husband. I can have a harsh tone with my nephew and my niece. I could have a harsh tone with my mother. I could have a harsh tone at work. A harsh tone doesn't work for anybody. It used to work. I think the world in the 80s and 90s, maybe that gave respect. Maybe because I was a woman, I thought I had to act like a man, or women that we come across more harsh. If a man says it and then I say it, I think people perceive it differently, honestly. How also women are judged as leaders, I feel like it's very true. I've never wanted to pull the female card in the sense of a leadership, but I do think people hear things differently from women. We have to be even more thoughtful in how we communicate. So I am constantly having to check myself. And it has been, work in even the last 2 years, in the last 3 years, where I had my team was willing to give me feedback. And I think that's again, how am I going to change? If nobody tells me how I'm making them feel, how am I going to evolve?
And it's a huge kind of a point of, I would say it takes a lot of courage to be that open that you suddenly telling other people that I'm open to feedback actually, and not just because I have to fill this questionnaire at the end of it. I'm genuinely gonna listen, and I think it's the kind of like the cocoon to a butterfly process. That metamorphosis is just so hard. You feel so many holes in your body that, oh my god, I've been this and I've been that. And I always feel that and speaking of women leadership, and I think this is so true as well, that at times, and again with Oxford Talks, I mentioned to you before that I think 60 to 70% of people who have either been the guests or even the person who have done the talks, they have been women. So there has been this theme of conversation pops up quite a lot. And I sometimes think, and it reminds me of, I forgot the name of the movie, is it's a funny one where all the men of the world have died and it's just two or three of them left, and there's just no wars anymore, and it's just everything is calm, the technology is working perfectly fine. And so I
That's
have that
funny.
kind of an idea in my head that and it has happened at times where within the teams, or I've seen observed it from a distance, that when a team member has been given a bit of a kind of a leadership role, that, oh, you're in charge of kind of this project, if I was to run that, oh my god, I would be. I think maybe because I'm slightly on the younger side, like, let's just go for it. And even to my partner, I'm like, we are doing this project, and to in my head, it's all just a train, right? Like if you're not 100% committed with no questions, that's like a military, like a, style. But the moment I see them and I'm trying to kind of learn more and more, they're like, let's think about this as well. Let's think about, I don't know, let's just go this way. And I think that has been a huge kind of a learning for me personally, that I think the world needs more of the other side. I think, well, again, we were just discussing before the podcast as well. There's a lot of this going on at the moment. It's my will or it's your will, and you're very right. And I think maybe us British people slightly can take a lead on that. That there's more, there's always more debate. There's always more. Even when I was studying at Oxford Brookes, I think there was a huge emphasis on how to get along with people that you don't see together eye to eye on projects. And I'm just reflecting back, I'm just, as I'm talking to you right now, that I absolutely hated those things. You're working on a thing and you just know you're right. It has to be this way. But then you have to listen to them and have to carry it that way. And I'm bringing the conversation to you. Where do you think you are on that journey as of today? And I'm really wanna sort of, I think wanna bring it home to the point regarding the trust as well, because that
Mm.
is really a huge kind of a goblet of things that is missing, is how to reach for a lot of people, and such a major issue in the world today. But where do you think personally you are from that journey of, I'm gonna almost behave like a man and be like very tough like your mother, to where you are today? Where are you on that equilibrium?
Yes, it's a good question, and I think it's going to be constant because I think I have, neural pathways that were developed very young, and there are triggers, and what I have to do now is, in my wisdom, is recognize what's real and what's not. Give my ability for response to not have to be so immediate and so intense that I have to, oh, if they don't do this, something bad's going to happen, is how I always felt. Like, I know the path, I have the vision, they should just listen to me. I'm going to drive it home. Well, that's not going to help me scale my business. Now, if I want to work alone with a very select few people, okay, fine. Uh, the thing for me now is I have to know my audience. So, whoever I'm speaking to, now I have a woman who's worked with me almost 20 plus years. She and I have been through a lot, a lot. That poor woman, I don't know how she's tolerated to me. I'm sure I'm going to have to, I don't know if she's on therapy or with ayahuasca, whatever she is. I owe her everything. We have now gotten to a really cool place where before she couldn't really talk to me because I'm just like, do this, Now I'm letting, like, I have to let her talk to me. So that's one place. I have to be open to listening. It's very important, whether I agree or not. It doesn't matter. And for some reason, for me, I don't know what it was about. I didn't have enough time. I felt overwhelmed. I didn't have the space for it. I just didn't have the maturity for it. The ability to listen to another human being, I think, is a big deal. Then it is also being willing to, what are the best outcomes? I think that is another thing, that it's not about what I think or you think. What are we wanting to achieve? Now, based on what the outcome is, we should then be working together towards that. Now, if we don't agree to the outcome, that's where I'm realizing in my life where miscommunication is coming.
Mm,
Do we all agree to where we're going? Do we see it the same way? That's where I'm trying to get to. And if I don't have an outcome alignment, then I don't even want to have a conversation. Let's try to get to an outcome alignment. Is it an analytic? Is it a visual? Is it a step process? Do we need to get more people in the room? So I don't want to argue anymore. That is something that is coming very clear to me. Arguments are not necessary. Now, discussions, I don't want ego, and I don't, because I have a lot of power. That's another thing that I didn't respect, the power and the fear people could feel around me because I'm the boss. I
mm,
have to respect the power I have. And so I am really working on that type of dynamic. And whether I think I'm one of the people or I just started in a garage and no, I say something. I say the word blue and they hear blue. They don't hear blue, they hear it's blue. And
very
so they're
well.
all trying to figure out what to do. So I had to become more self aware about my impact. I have to be really clear what our outcomes are. And then I have to tailor my communication to who's in the room. And that is where I'm doing my best as long as I continue to run this business. I have to do that because I could create a lot of fallout for no reason. And
Yeah.
the fallout now is what I'm also really aware of. That's not fun to me anymore. I would rather people feel calm, and people are able to contribute so that I can also have balance now. And it's a selfish thing for me to want to improve myself,
No, no, of
you
course not.
know?
And of course not.
Yeah.
Anissa, I want to bring in culture and see the whole thing through that lens that you have set up two factories in China, which is something I don't think so. I've come across any individual in my life so far that who can claim that has they have done that. Because from my understanding, China is a bit of a reversal of how business is done. For example, for between UK and US businesses, well, it's a bit on the lower side, but it's not a hard thing for a UK enterprise to jump over to US and all of those things. But China is not like that. It's a cultural difference. It's a language difference. Um, Especially the culture part that they have this kind of a bit more rigid culture of like if the boss is telling us to do this, same thing. I think not as similar, but I think you can see a bit of it in Japanese culture. They have a very popular name for it, the salary man. You can't leave the office before your boss does that, those kind of a things. How you, who as a person who grew up in America with American values and all of those things, and this is a complete 180 on China. How did that story happen?
Well, because I was around so many cultures, even in my own home, I, understood that the world was global from a very early age. And, I would be in rooms where nobody spoke English and I would have to figure out what they were saying when I was with my mother or with my father. My grandparents never learned English, and I was very close to my grandmother. I would sit with her and we would communicate without being able to speak to one another.
Just with symbols and like,
Just, you just know, right? You
yeah.
kind of just, and even right now, I was just talking to a girl and her English was not great. So I know people are human and language is, yes, a part of it, but we can also, how we speak to someone, how we look at someone, how we maybe explain in a certain way. So, always with the culture, it started in Korea and then in China, I have felt very respectful of their culture. And yes, I was even tough. I tried to do the American way when I first started. That was not going to
The loud
happen.
way.
Yeah, exactly. Dude, and they're just like all like scrambling. No, I had to send my husband at the time, who was tall, blonde, white guy, looked like a surfer, and they all loved him. So I was like, he was able to get, certain things done because he was so chill. And, but over time, China has evolved more than we can even imagine. They want what we want, which is, to work smart, not hard. And they also want to make a greater impact in the world. The people now, my team now, I find to be more respectful,
Mm.
more sometimes integrous, uh, more, they want to, if they so much want to elevate their ability to contribute. And I feel, I don't like to say this, but I think US culture has gotten tougher, how people are harder to please and they may not understand.
In what sense? In the customer
Well,
sense or in the
not,
team?
I think in a cultural sense. I
Mm.
think it's harder for them to understand that what we have, going through COVID was a was really, I feel, devastating to the American workforce. I don't think people want to appreciate maybe what a company could offer them. I think it's very difficult for a company to communicate, the cultural issues or challenges. I feel that you have many demographics now in the workforce in America in one building. Everybody has different work styles. And now, with this need for flexibility, this need for, you know, these comparisons, people not being in the office every day to be mentored or coached, it's made it really hard.
That's a huge drawback. I personally
Yeah.
think it is because um I personally think you can do a lot of business online. I think a lot of marketing is still online and all of those things. But as of today, I think the whole kind of an Oxford Talks business has had to be very physical for it to really work. I'm thinking about it. We we really picked up a bit of a boom during COVID actually. because everyone went on Zoom. We were still the only production which were like, okay, we can come to Oxford. Yes, I might see you from 16 meters away, but you can still do that. And I think even now, we're going to Harvard, we're going to Davos. That was stopping us from putting a green screen here and be like, this is Davos. Uh, and that's a very small example that I have in front of me. And I just can't imagine you are a 20, 21, 22-year old just out of uni. And again, as I mentioned to you, that if you don't have a kind of a figure in your life, let's say for me, that was my parents, my mother, that this is how business can be done. A customer kind of walks in, they need to be walking out with a big smile. And our job is to make sure in this room that happens. Sometimes you have to charge more to make that happen. Sometimes we charge less to make that happen. Sometimes the time needs to be this. But those dynamics, that is the job of you to make sure that is the case. But I learned that in person. I was just kid like sitting here like watching, watching, watching. I can't do that online now. Maybe I can go through all sorts of courses. And he said, how you have you set up multiple teams across different cultures. Do you of the opinion that it has resulted in a kind of a doom for a generation, or do you think it's reversing back, or we are not coming back to that?
In the sense of us being connected or being back in
As
office
you
or
mentioned, especially for US and UK, that
mhm,
not being back into office, I personally think it has been a bit of on the drawback side.
mhm,
Already the world is a bit more lonely without devices.
mhm.
Work is the place, you spend 9 to 5. There's a lot of time you spend. You make friends, and I can't even think of like I would absolutely love that. For example, if I never had a career in terms of like a traditional one, and but if I was, I don't know, working in finance, yeah, I would spend 2 years in working for JP Morgan, make some friends there, move to another company, make some friends there, and after 10 years, I have friends across the city. But if I'm just working from home, I would just see my boss, maybe a couple of teams, maybe it's some names I remember from emails,
Mhm.
but I never get to shake their hands. And maybe there's just so many opportunities that have popped in life because you just know someone who knows someone who has just seen a LinkedIn post. Oh, yeah, we want to do this. And that, do you think in your teams you're seeing that? Because this kind of a kind of a mixing of ideas together, not being in the same room all the time. Even we when we try to do the podcast, we try to get them as much as I think most of the 99% of the podcasts have been in person. Reason being because at the end of the pod or in the beginning, we actually get to sit down and we get to talk about, okay, how was your day and all of that. I've done one online. The moment the pod finished, gone. There was just no connection there. Is that kind of a going on in your team, or what's your kind of a observance, and is it a positive one or is it a negative one?
So, because we were in the South, we were in Atlanta, we came back to the office pretty quickly, which created a lot of disturbance. I lost 30% of my workforce, not in 2020, but in 2021. They were very angry that I was not going to allow us to work from home. So, we work now in office 3 days a week and every other Monday. My plant team, they go in every day. And, I have some agreements with, I have a few people in New York, a few people in California, I have somebody here in London, and I have some people in Atlanta that they have to drive almost 2 hours, so they don't have to come in. So there's some things we talk about. I do give them certain weeks off, like the 4th of July week now is a very special thing, how we do our Christmas, how we do so there'll be, times where we're just gonna have more longer stints, from home to give them time because I believe it's very important. But I think for people to have EQ, and then there's this new thing, I think AQ, I can't remember that I don't know how people will learn to interact with each other if they're not with one another. And I do also believe to be very innovative and to create optimization and solutions to bring people together. So you have the sense of someone if they're connected or not. If they're, what is going on with them? Are they okay? What can I do for you? And especially as a strong functional team, if you do not spend time with each other, then you start to assume things that may or may not be true.
And so, what makes a great cross cultural team?
I think you have to have leadership that communicates consistently and fairly. And that's something we have not always done well. I have hired, someone who he has really made a difference for me the last year and a half. And his first thing was about first strategy, global, clear strategy, trying to get me out of this tactical operational point of view all the time, and then communicating that clear strategy. Also celebrating, the wins. And my team was telling me, like, "We need to celebrate wins." I'm like, "What are you even talking about? Don't we I don't know what you want me to do." So just I think it's, again, communicating. So what we're doing now is having these global meetings. I used to not do that with my leadership. So they can all hear the same thing, and also in that communication, I cannot stress enough, what is the direction we're all going in? All right, is everybody clear about what we're trying to achieve? And that is going to make a huge difference for us.
So how does can you walk me through the journey? I'm going to talk a little bit about your work. I think I saw that you were working with all the big names that one can imagine in the beauty industry, like the wall of love or the wall of kind of customers is just infinite. How does what exactly are the kind of type of products that you make? How are they made? What's the process kind of look like from an inception to like in someone's hand?
So when I started, I just made the little brushes that went in compacts. I started with Revlon. Then I started like little adjacencies, accessories, anything other than the actual formula. So I do not make makeup and I do not make skincare. I don't do any kind of bath gels. I do all types of accessories. When I had to launch my own factories in 2003, we really, really focused on artistry, premium brushes. So a brush will make sure the makeup works. And we focused on innovation because we got out of any kind of animal hair.
Mm.
Brushes were made from animal products. I did not want to use animal products, so I had to innovate, design, patent different kinds of fibers. So why I feel so fortunate is that when I started all of this in 1992, I did not want to be a commodity. And
Mm.
that's what I think I learned from Fatima, that she, what was cool about her is that she always thought was like, what's next? How am I going to be better? How am I going to stand out? Because she wasn't the biggest and she was a woman and she was on her own. And, how is she going to be something nobody else offered? And I knew I needed to make money. If I was gonna just compete with price, I was gonna be nothing to any there's no value if you're just going neck to neck, I
Mm.
think. So, when it came to our products, I have always looked for how do I add value? So now our value has a lot to do with product positioning. It has to do with product innovation. Our customers, they will like share their formulas with us and then I will design a brush head or a fiber. I will make suggestions to them for best performance. So you have to think what we make is our performance tools, like a Dyson hair dryer or a Dyson vacuum or, a Tweezerman tweezer or the best toothbrush you could ever buy, the best hairbrush you could ever buy. A really good brush makes a huge difference in how your expensive makeup or your expensive skincare will work for you. Now, I kind of shot myself in the foot when I stopped using animal products because synthetic fibers can be very cost effective and mass produced. So there's a lot of brushes out there now, but not the way we make them in the sense of transparency, responsibility, sustainability, innovation, durability. So somehow I still have a business, which is amazing to me some days.
No, that's crazy. Anissa, for someone who has always seen the makeup section from a distance, and you go to Boots and be like, makeup, that's not for me. You just go up. How do you explain the kind of because you must have had to change materials over time, and so what's the kind of material you use today, and what's the kind of a new technology that you're looking at that you think this might change?
So with the fibers we use the base is the same. So it's a petroleum based product. It's a fiber that's extruded. So what we looked at is how do we evolve the extrusions, and then there's other ways to emulate animal hair. So animal like the hair on our head has waves, has it's porous or non like it's
Yeah.
all, like the way it is, the tip of it, how something picks up and pays off is actually very technical. So we will focus on that. We focus on also the handle materials. We only now, if you want wood, it's an FSC where it's reforested.
Mm.
We use PCR plastics. The aluminum that we use is made in our facility, so the process is not as dirty as the original process. The packaging that we use, we want it to also be recyclable. The industry that I'm in, beauty, they are always looking to compliance and regulatory. How do we do it better because it has to touch the skin?
Mm.
So I do appreciate that about the industry, the L'Oreals of the world, the Sephoras of the world. They're very thoughtful, and in that thoughtfulness, they require us to be compliant. So we are able to do that. It's very important to us to do that.
And have you so it's primarily brushes, or there are other kind of accessories that you produce as well?
Well, we can also now do brush cleaners to different kind of silicone products. I patented a really cool brush cup. It's kind of fun. Some brush cleaning pads. We are looking at doing all kinds of different skincare. It could have fiber or fiberless, and so anything that could apply a product. Also bags. Seasonal collections, beautiful holiday kits
I
will
love
come in a
that.
pretty bag or a box. We want to do more. So when COVID happened, I really had to focus on my operations. I had to reorg my plant team while I was in US and they were in China. I had to build a whole new team and I'm still focusing on China because we are a handmade product and we need to start automating. And so what are the things I can automate?
Yeah.
And again, with what just went happen with tariffs with the US, how do I protect us, on a global scale?
How did you navigate that? And it's still going, isn't it?
Yeah, well, there was a period of time where the tariffs were 145%. So nobody was talking about anything. And everybody was saying, when are you going to move your plant? I'm like, well, we're not a mobile home. So I cannot move from China. I don't want to move. We have all the raw materials, we have all the infrastructure. I have the government is very strong, for us to partner with, and they're improving, you
Oh,
know.
just quick. So you have to partner with the local government there too?
Well, in any government, in the US, we have to make sure we're in compliance. So I have to make sure, when they change the wage, the
Okay.
wages or the social insurance or what their environmental compliance is, they were very good to us because,
Mm.
I could negotiate my lease with them. I could talk to them about this is what we're dealing with. I mean, I have quite a few workers there. So at least I have somebody to speak to.
Yeah, but is it not like the Saudi model where I'm not sure if it's still there, but you have to get like someone local to
No, not
register a
anymore.
business or anything?
It used to be JVs, joint
Yeah,
ventures, so I never had to have a joint venture. I was very lucky.
it's completely independent your business then.
Yes, yes, but we still work within a construct.
Yeah, of
I
course.
have to
Yeah.
make sure that we are doing what is needed. So to me, I that's why I feel any other country around us does not have the infrastructure that we need. So what I had to do is just remodel how I could support my customer. What can I do for them to make their life easier? Because again, I own my facility, so I could support them if it was just logistically or however. But I have great customers, and what I got to see was some customers view what we do as very strategic. So if we're strategic to them, we're going to have a partnership. Some customers just looked at us as a very tactical situation. If someone needs us in a tactical um, circumstance, they really aren't as open, to being supportive. And
Mm,
so we have to ensure our product, or our customer segmentation, there's a certain mix. If I work with the bigger global beauty brands, we might be more tactical than strategic. That was very interesting for me to learn. Some of the more indie brands, they were much looking at us as a very strategic partner.
mm,
And we're so grateful that we could be very open.
yeah.
And then some people were like, we can't order brushes anymore. I lost a customer of 20 years. They literally just sent us like a text message. Thanks, but no thanks. I was like, okay.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's such as business.
Yes, such is business.
We are
Yes.
learning a little bit of ourselves because our business has never been very deliberately. We don't rely on any kind of a key partners or anything for from a person coming in to want to do a talk until the end. It's all end to end in the house. from the cameras we use, from duration we do, and YouTube channels. Like it's there's no like we have to ask permission from this person or anything. We just recently through this pod we started opening up the brand, and with the circle thing that we're starting from Davos, which Aperture is one of the brands that they just partnered up with us recently. So here's a brand mention for them. But we're learning these dynamics that we reached out to some German brands. They were all kind of equipment companies for audio and everything. And they were very much like, okay, yes, tell us what's the positioning and this and that and all of that. And it's 3 months of like conversations and, oh, next year we'll think about this. And I'm like, should I just told me straight away? Just talk to Aperture. It's an American company. I think half an hour call and audience can't, for listeners, they can't say, but there's like that big box of Aperture. They just sent like a huge light to it. And they're like, oh, we'd love to partner up with you guys and make sure your podcast looks great. I was like, oh, perfect. So, and again, if they go away tomorrow or something, but for me, I want to work with them more now because the people that I came across there, and if you can see eye to eye together, okay, they are interested in making sure this looks better, and they're trying to make our show look better.
Exactly.
So I think that is really kind of a key. I want to come back to the product quickly. And so, what's your kind of a day to day role recently or even today that when you need to think of a kind of a new accessory or new brush, do you really sit down with the designers and it's your brainchild of like, this is how it needs to work? Or there's like a team which takes the data from market and presents you the opportunity, like, oh, when he said we could do this, how does it work?
Yeah, now it's more so they will start the process. I will give insight, but I'm not driving it like I used to. It used to all come from me. And 8 years ago, I hired someone who she also had experience with brushes, and she was my competitor. And we both knew of each other. We had never met. And it's very rare to find somebody who knows brushes. It is very rare. So I was really lucky that she joined us. And then she had to really focus on West Coast customers because I didn't have a sales team. But now I am asking her to really move into that chief product role. I want us, like you were saying, marketing insights, our internal insights, external insights. I now want to start to build my pipeline again for product because we were
Hmm.
very innovative for a really, really long time. Then COVID hit, lost staff, have to become operational, got back in the business in a way that I never had before because I never really built my plant. I had people do it for me. So I now wanted to understand. And so I've been doing that for the last 4 years. And I stopped all innovation. We only started to just use what was in our library, just kind of bringing it back. Now I'm ready for go time.
Yeah.
So I want to build a really solid pipeline. And that's what we're going to start working on. And it's
And
not going to totally come from me. I will say yes or no probably at the end of the day, but they need to work with me. We have a big team and we need to even find more expertise for brushes.
And is it like this is just me thinking of Apple? Is it like a secret studio that only you and a handful of people are allowed in, and you're looking at designs, and no, the windows are not tinted, and no one can look inside? Is it like that, or is it a bit more kind of an open process?
I mean, it takes a long time to make a brush and to get it right. You would be surprised how long it takes to perfect it. And there is a select few. And also because in being in China, we are, people like to know what we're doing. So, they wait for us to launch now,
Yeah.
hopefully, because they won't understand how to market it. At least they know that if I launch something new and they want to copy me, well, give it a minute, right? So, yeah.
Copy, is that you? Why would you? What's the? And this is purely fascination for me because for me a brush is a brush, but I didn't realize like the people who are making it. For example, I think isn't it the case that I think there may be like two or three really big factories in the world which make all the kind of the pointy ends of the ball pen, like the bowl, the actually bowl that fits in and rolls the ink, and they have some patent on it, the zippers and all of that.
Right.
And whenever I come across or hear about this business, my fascination is just next level. Like it's such a small thing, and you use it
Yes.
every day. You just never probably think about it by using it, but someone has like a whole supply chain and the material that goes into it. So is for you, is it what is really and again without telling anything related to IP, but what is it in a brush that makes it a technical challenge, and that the competitor is like really like sitting and looking what they're gonna do, and after you have done yours.
So we have about 70 plus patents. And we start, we have patents in fibers and the extrusions. We have head shapes. So we designed some really cool head shapes. Like in my brand, it's called the Pinnacle Foundation. So it's a triangular with a dome head shape. So all foundation brush in the past were flat. They were
Hmm.
like a paintbrush. All brushes, the innovation came from paintbrush industry. You would just, slather it on. It would streak. It didn't move quickly. And when I designed this Pinnacle foundation brush, nobody believed me that people would want it. So I had to launch my own brand to prove it.
Hmm.
Now, if you see, all foundation brushes have changed where people are pressing them into the skin. It is not about this kind of streaky kind of application. And because I'm not a trained makeup artist and I knew what I knew I wanted a fast coverage that was even, that I could take a tinted moisturizer, which is not a heavy formula, and I wanted to have a full finish. So that's how I designed it. Then I designed a concealer brush shaped like a finger because women were using their fingers to apply.
Yes,
And
that I've
so I
seen.
shaped it. And now, like, you'll see that is out there. And it had a slant to the ferrule because we had a new automated machine. A lot of people copied that. I had a patent on it, but only patent in US. So people were then copying this because people aren't thinking about what's next when it comes to brushes like I am. Again, you have to think about,
Yeah.
I met this gentleman when I was 21. He taught me, and I got a bug for product design. And I got something about the strategy of marketing and fulfilling a need. And I just love it. I mean, I don't know what it is. It's my claim to fame. They call me the brush lady. And I have just made more brushes than most
More like
humans.
the queen of brushes.
Yeah, whatever. I don't know.
Brush lady might just be some salesperson. I queen. I own everything here.
Well, I mean, I get some respect. I do get some
That's good.
respect. And yeah, and to me, it's like it's the beauty industry. The beauty industry is it aligns with fashion.
Yeah.
It's a very creative industry. People are very passionate about the art of
Yeah.
their, persona, and also about our confidence comes from how we present. And makeup and skincare now make a huge difference. Longevity, confidence, empowerment, art, expression. There's so much to it. And if you have, again, the right brush compared to a crappy brush that's falling apart, leaving hairs on your face, doesn't pick up the product, makes you work really, really hard, you
Hmm.
know the difference.
Oh, now I'm getting to really appreciate it. It's like an artist's tool,
Correct.
and it reminds me of like Apple's kind of like old marketing thing that make wonderful tools so people can do wonderful things.
And I
Um,
admired Steve Jobs because I always wanted to be the Apple of brushes.
oh yeah,
Now I'm trying to figure out what I want to be because I don't want to be that now. Now I feel like I'm coming into this new phase of product design. And I'm curious, who do we want to be now? Like, what does the industry need today? Which I think is less is more. I think buy better, like even with clothing, right? I don't want to be fast fashion. I want to give somebody something that will last and will get them through a trend and gives them the ability to have a multi-purpose and to understand that they could be excited about whatever they're going to use the brush for.
he said, what's the difference between and this is, you treat me as a 5-year-old who has never probably used a brush in that capacity. What's the difference between, let's say, you just mentioned that hair might be left on your face. I mean, that's terrible to think. What's the difference between, let's say, a $1 brush versus, let's say, $25 brush? Would a consumer, if they're going to the market, they want to buy something for themselves, what is the kind of consumer insight that you want to give them so they have in their head before they make their next purchase? I mean, they should be purchasing Anisa's brushes, but even if there are others, what should they have in their mind?
Well, I think what they don't understand is that there are base materials. So the base of the fiber, the base of the ferrule, the base of the handle, all the materials that go into it, and the thoughtfulness in which someone is paid to make it.
Mm.
Because to make a brush it came from an artisan in the past, but now you have people that are just churning them out. And we have a certain quality control where, to me, a brush, even though it's made by hand, it should be consistent. So we have things called golden benchmarks. Then we have things called range boards. So we don't want to fall outside the range. Some of the brushes that are more cost effective, there's no real quality control. It is just manufacturing.
Like
As
a
if it's,
machine just churning stuff.
well, it's not machine, it's still people, but they do not have the same oversight. Like, we cannot make bad quality brushes. We don't know how. It's
Okay.
impossible. It's embedded in our culture for consistency, quality, durability, and it's just who we are.
And how much your mom Fatima helped you shape that culture?
Well, I think the way Fatima helped me shape was that I had to be able to make money.
Mm.
And because I wasn't going to have any kind of safety net, there was no fallback. And she also taught me that if you work with a customer that is $1 billion or, $1 million, it's the same work. Right? So go after the bigger customers.
That is so true though. I totally get behind that idea. Yes.
She taught me that. And the larger customers, I think what you have to do sometimes is prove your value and your worth to
And you
them.
know, this is coming from someone as a British kind of entrepreneur working 99% with American leaders. I think there's a bit of a difference in. I'm not, sacking off any customers. We love them all. It's the dynamic that we experience us as a business that when we get any from anywhere, especially in Europe or especially we don't have much in UK. It's more mainland Europe. There's a lot of kind of a thinking process. They're gonna talk to their partners, business, their wives, and whatever. All of that happens. And in America, I think I my all of our business have been America. So when I started, I worked with Ted. I had been in America. Time Magazine had been America, and then Oxford Talks. All clients are America, and we just love the speed that America has for some reason. Marina and I, we call it the New York speed. Uh,
Mm,
it's you make a, if you have made a decision that okay, I'm gonna go for this, the time from there to I want to experience that product, it can't be long.
mm,
America really has that kind of a, you can call it very blatantly like a bit of a consumer culture that if I, it's like the same day delivery thing. If I purchase it, I want to have it, which I think started from there and then really propagated to the world. And UK is not too far from US, and I think that we really love about that. And I think the challenge that comes with it, it will be returned immediately if they don't like it. And I think in mainland Europe, or I think the rest of the world, there is a kind of a bit of a mediation that can be going on that it's not really about our, but what I expect. For example, we have our vendors as well for things, and we think, when we speak to them in the kind of British vendors, they'll always try to kind of mediate, or they'll try to tell to us that, oh, maybe there's some expectation management needs to go on and all of that. In America, yeah, we didn't like the product.
yeah.
It's either a refund straight away, or they'll be like, oh, sorry, like we're terribly sorry that this couldn't work. But the time, it doesn't take 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And I think that speed is perhaps one of the core reasons that American enterprises are the biggest in the world.
Hmm.
Where, and if you really think about it, Nisa, that the decisions on customers or products that I'm going to take in 6 months,
Mm-hmm.
you essentially can take them in 2 weeks. You multiply that by 10 years, you have taken maybe 60,000 decisions in 10
Yeah.
years, and I might have taken like 400
Hmm.
because I took just that time to, and that's why the garage stories that, oh, my brother, he lives in America, and I even see in him that there is a more risk tolerance there. There's more giving a chance to people versus in UK. I think my circles are not that, and after I left uni, I don't think so they are there. But in the wider culture, I do face a resistance that
Hmm.
uh, we are a media company at the heart of it, but we wanted to do banking. Oh my God. This is like a 180 pivot that you're doing is totally different. And took us maybe I talk about it quite a time. It took us 2 years of meeting with banks in UK and took us maybe 3 weeks in US. And the results were the same. And just realized, okay, you're very right that who you choose to be as a customer can really affect you as a business as well. A bad customer, not any customer is bad in the sense that customers have their own categories. Some take longer decisions, sometimes shorter decisions, but you can really, for example, Apple is not a company that sells 60,000 pound dollars MacBooks or anything. That is their sweet spot, is ordinary consumers and everything. They are not really an enterprise company. And we use Macs in all the things that we do. But the moment we went into kind of the banking world, Macs are not really a thing. Excel is a thing we're gonna. I'm like that thing. I mean, we hate Microsoft. If you want to fund us, please do. But we hate we hate the products. It's terrible to work with those, and it's just cluttery and all of those things. Anissa, I do want to bring the question of the common thread that we are talking about in Davos as well, which is the kind of the thing of trust. Multiple things have gone in your life and they have shaped who you are, what your beliefs are. Where do you think you stand today on that? Someone like, if you were to give a kind of an opinion or an advice to a 22-year-old, either you or someone in a similar situation, what would you tell that, regardless of mistakes and everything, especially on the lens of trust? What would be the kind of the guideline that this is the better way to live life?
Yeah, I think now, this has been so interesting for me to talk about and think about. I think for if there's a nugget, I think we have to begin to trust ourselves. So I really believe why I'm even doing this talk is to reevaluate, where is the trust, you know, that I have built, that I do believe in myself, and where, or just even accepting when I am maybe naturally, maybe I trust too much sometimes. When does that happen? I'm still naive, or I'm allowing trust and like trying to see trust but verify, or I just don't trust. And that's okay. That doesn't mean something's wrong. It just means how do I want to communicate it? So I think if we don't trust something, we need to talk about it. And what do we need to do to build trust? It's not personal, it's how I am. And I think people have to understand where are their boundaries with trust when it comes to whatever it's going to be in choosing a partner and how we communicate honestly with our parents or, family members. How honest are we with ourselves, that can we trust ourselves to handle, the things that we need to handle? I do think it starts with us because I think I did not trust myself for a long time, and I discounted things I knew I should have maybe done differently. I would not listen to myself for some reason because I think of my past. It would be too much because as a child, I knew that things were not right, but yet I couldn't do anything about it. Like I knew it wasn't right. My mother comes and pulls checks out. I knew I should have been freaking out, instead of trying to plan for the worst all the time or being the safety net for her. And there's no should have. I was 20. How could I tell my mother, the queen, Fatima, who is, manning our whole livelihood, taking all the risk? What am I going to tell her to do? Nothing. I have to just bear the brunt of it. But I do think that had an impact on me and how I dissolved my boundaries in some way when it came to trust. And then I would just trust too many people when they would get, and then when people start to show you you cannot trust them, we have to start to make decisions. And those are the things I think we're always going to deal with. I don't think it ever stops because we are human, and our humanity will like I have to trust
Hmm.
this microphone works, whoever built it, right? I have to trust when
Oh,
I
same as me. I hope. Yeah,
exactly that
I
this
hope it
chair
does.
is going
Yes,
to work,
yes.
right? That my phone is all we trust on so many levels that we don't even think about. And I think that's why people have anxiety.
Yes. Yeah.
But we have to. And I had a woman say to me once, you're very down to earth. However, you are not grounded.
Oh,
And
fascinating.
I know, I think if I could be more grounded, the idea of how I trust will make more sense. And I think we're constantly going to be evaluating where those trust boundaries are. And I think sometimes we have to risk trust. We have to. Like, it's
Yeah.
just part of the game that we're playing. And then we learn.
And so my penultimate question to you, where you are in your life today, where you meet someone, do you start with 100% of trust till someone doesn't? Or you start at 20%, 30%? Has it changed? Where are you today?
Well, I think today I have better boundaries, for myself. And when I meet someone, I just take them at face value for whatever we're meeting for, right? So you and I trust you to do this podcast. I trust that the podcast hopefully will get out. I trust that you won't make me look whatever or like, I do trust that. And I have no reason to trust that. I've seen some of the podcasts, but I have no reason to trust that. But I'm choosing that, of course. So I think it's again, there's situational trust, right? There's also foundational trust, and it all depends on what is happening. But I think for me, when people would say to me, "You don't trust me," I would be like, "Yeah, I do. What are you talking about?" Like, I mean, then I realized maybe there's element like what are they picking up on? And am I putting something out? Because then that's how people are going to react to me.
Hmm.
And so I think, having these open dialogues, and I've tried, with people who work for me, that I need time to trust. I do. I've said that. And maybe I need to say it clearer, but people don't like to talk about that. They don't want to talk about trust. Like if I were to say to you, okay, this is, we're going to go in waves, right? People don't like that. They want you to just trust them right away. But it has nothing to do with them. It has to do with me, what I can tolerate. So that's what and people will not understand that sometimes. They'll take it very personally. Oh, you don't trust me?
And I think it's your prerogative to set that boundary actually.
Correct. I think it's okay when you
Yeah, it
mature.
is your prerogative because
Yeah.
if I'm demanding that, then something is wrong with me. I should
And
not
not
be.
everybody trusts me right away, and I used to get really offended by it. And now I'm learning to respect it more.
Yeah.
But how do we talk about trust? And I think it's as difficult as money and, like it's finance and romance are like the hardest things to talk about. But I do think trust is one of those things too.
That's amazing. Anissa, I would love to. We have this kind of tradition at the pod that we ask the guest what has been the kind of most profound piece of literature, even can be movies, something that really changed the way you think. We try to buy that,
Mm.
especially books. We try to buy them and give it to people, and whenever they buy them, and we connect you and that one person that we sent the book to. So hopefully, through this conversation, through the kind of a same piece of literature, you can connect, and that's kind of our very apparent result of like an idea worth doing versus oh we just did this pod and it's just sitting on internet. So what would be that kind of piece of literature that yes was very
I
profound for
mean,
you?
there's so many things, and I feel like I
We have a
forget.
budget for one book, so
Yeah,
you
yeah, yeah.
can
I
tell
don't, I
one.
don't, I don't know. I wish I could know. So, Pima Chodron's When Things Fall Apart. I'm
Okay,
starting to listen to that again. She, became a Buddhist monk, and I listened to that when I had gotten divorced. And she talks about, again, the humbling of when things fall apart. And it was a great book. And yeah, I'm starting to listen to that again. I'm doing an audio version of it.
that's really good. We'll definitely take a look at that
Okay.
and put that up. Um, Anissa, thank you so much for being on the pod. It has been a wonderful conversation. So many questions still, so many things to learn from you as well. But thank you so much for being on the pod with us.
Thank you.